Mixed signals are always the hardest to know what to do with. I don't mean to compare everything in every single show to Justin Fields, and this isn't about Justin Fields to be clear, but his circumstance does seem like the measuring stick that we're comparing basically everything to right now. And I guess my point is that there aren't really any mixed signals with Justin Fields, especially at this point, right? Like, don't get me wrong. You could go back like a couple months ago and find mock drafts where the Atlanta Falcons are giving up the number 8 overall pick for Justin Fields. But from basically the time the combine started and by the end of the free agency window, the signals were very, very clear. Maybe he gets another shot, but no one is willing to pay for him to get a shot on their team. But what the heck are we supposed to do when Jerry Jeudy signs a 3-year $58 million with $48 million in guarantees? It's always hard to factor in contracts into trade packages, but part of the reason this is mixed signals is that Jeudy was just traded for a 5th and a 6th round pick. I did the quick back of the napkin math really quick on one of my calculators before the show. It came out to basically the exact same cost that the Eagles paid for Kenny Pickett, and semi-significantly less than what the Seattle Seahawks paid for Sam Howell. Yes, you have to consider that needing a new deal was a factor in that calculation, but does that actually signal widespread interest from the NFL? On this show being Fantasy for Real, with myself as host, CJ Friel, we try to sort through the mixed signals. Usually I try to have a strong developed opinion, but sometimes I don't know what to make of things. 41 million guaranteed 9 times out of 10, heck, maybe more than 9 times out of 10. This is the kind of thing where I say you have to move on from your priors and understand that a team just made a commitment that suggests that they are now in a situation where they essentially have to use him a certain amount. Just one show ago, I said that there was no real reason in my mind to view Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy differently, and I genuinely believe that at the time, that was pretty good advice. So from that basis alone, I have to be moving him up my rankings. There's no way I can't move him up my rankings. The last sell I bring up today, a bit later in the show, is Hollywood Brown. And I guess I'm just asking myself, I think this is my biggest problem. Have two players ever retained value as much as Hollywood and Jeudy without having nearly enough actual production to show for it? Now, I'm sure there probably are a few. Dynasty always has their darlings, but at the end of the day, these are two players who really haven't done that much. Yes, there have been stretches and streaks for both of these players that have gotten us excited for Jerry Jeudy and Hollywood Brown, but Hollywood Brown and Jerry Jeudy have played in the NFL at this point for a combined 9 football seasons. They have broken through 1,000 yards between them one time. That was a season that totaled 1,008 yards. They have both dealt with injury, and that is part of the reason that we constantly talk ourselves into believing into these guys, I think. But even if you adjust for their missed games, and missed games isn't the perfect way to adjust for injury, but even if you adjust for their missed games, these are 4 and 5 season samples at this point, and these 7-game paces for these players do not crack 1,000 yards. So it's not just the missed games. Hollywood Brown's pace through 5 seasons is about 860 yards and 6.5 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy's pace through about 4 seasons is 900 yards and 3 touchdowns. So neither of these numbers are very good. Now, Jerry Jeudy does do a little bit better and a little bit better consistently when you look at him on yards per route run and through that lens, but that really comes from a figure that peaked in 2022 and then fell off again in 2023. Without the 2022 season, the numbers are at least a little bit more mediocre and pedestrian. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, how much does the 2023 season matter to you? Because it seems like it doesn't matter to the Browns at all. It seems like the Browns are really looking at this guy as the best version of what he's been on his best days at the NFL level so far. So Jerry Jeudy, from a trades perspective, we can point to the specific areas that he is struggling in, right? I talk about 2 areas that I scout wide receivers through if I really break it down into 2 big areas. Separation, point of attack. The reason so many people have liked Jeudy for so long is that he profiles so well in separation, but he's so poor at the point of attack, or at least has been for the first 4 years of his career, and that is really what has held him back. If you want the upside scenario, so to speak, I do talk up Christian Kirk quite a bit on this show, and I have said on the record on this show myself that part of the reason I think Christian Kirk is a buy is that at one point he was overpaid in the market, and that has caused people to kind of have a distaste for him ever since. And going back to what I just said, if Jerry Jeudy was coming off of 2022, this might feel a lot more like the Christian Kirk deal. It doesn't feel like the Christian Kirk deal because at least Christian Kirk was coming off of the best year in his career. Jerry Jeudy is coming off of disappointing everybody once again. And I think that's why the market is where it is with Jerry Jeudy. So ultimately, I think the problem in this situation is that while every standard objective decision-making process I have and hold says that this should raise his value, frankly, a ton, I have to acknowledge that if there is one thing consistent about Jerry Jeudy, it is the fact that over 4 years, his perceived value has consistently outpaced his actual on-field performance. His on-field performance has never lived up to his perceived value. And frankly, the trouble is Jerry Jeudy's burned so many people because of the hot and cold and the up and down that it's become hard to sell him even with this thing that should objectively change things. So the regret I've kept mentioning, this fact that there's so many times, like, for example, I had an opportunity maybe 2 years ago to trade Jerry Jeudy and a random first-round pick for A.J. Brown, and I turned it down. On just an individual trade basis, that is one of my biggest regrets in that league because having a true wide receiver one is one of the main things I've been looking for. But at the same time, I ask myself, is Jerry Jeudy a sell? And I want to say yes, and I want to sell him, but I keep looking at the market, and it seems like too many people like me have realized that they've made these mistakes with Jerry Jeudy, and they're not willing to make them again. And so everything about this show that I get at is that this is a critical thinking market-based show. This is not a show that only looks for 3 or 4 criteria and then bases everything on those 3 or 4 criteria. My instinct, my gut screams that this means we go out and sell Jerry Jeudy. But the problem is my gut doesn't understand how marketplaces work. My gut doesn't understand that we can only sell a player if other people want to buy. And so I get the reaction to sell because I think the reaction is correct. The reaction is based on what the market usually does to players who get contracts like this. But if the market's not moving, if the market's staying way basement where the majority of trades I'm still seeing are a 3rd round pick, if I can get like 2 seconds for Jerry Jeudy or a good second or a good second and a third maybe, I would easily trade Jerry Jeudy. But the market that I'm seeing still says that he's more likely to get traded for a 3rd straight up than a 2nd. And frankly, this contract does make it not feasible to me to trade Jerry Jeudy for a 3rd round pick anymore. I think you could have traded Jerry Jeudy for a 3rd round pick 2 weeks ago and at least said that it was a fairly valid decision on your part. Now, there's no way that you can trade Jerry Jeudy for just a 3rd round pick. And if somebody's out there shopping Jerry Jeudy and they couldn't get a 3rd round pick before and now they're just thinking, I will take anything, I will take a 3rd round pick for this player. At the end of the day, with this contract, I think you do have to take advantage of it. So I really started writing out this segment at the beginning, not talking about it, but writing it out, believing that at the end, Jerry Jeudy would be a sell. But the more I think about the market, the more I'm leaning towards buy, which I hate. I despise myself for saying that with Jerry Jeudy. But you have to understand sometimes that the fact that I despise myself for saying that is probably the same reason he actually is a buy. Because so many people right now feel so burned by Jerry Jeudy that they're not willing to give him any kind of shot. And this is a lifeline for his career. So you shouldn't pay as if he's going to be a good player. But if people aren't even willing to pay for the lifeline, you might want to buy it. That concludes this segment of the Fantasy for Real podcast covering Jerry Jeudy. I decided not to put anything up front because this Jerry Jeudy segment opened episode 14. You might have also noticed a little bit of an awkward moment around minute 2. Maybe you didn't, but that's because I cut out the portion where I mentioned the schedule for the rest of episode 14. But speaking of the rest of episode 14, I do have a pretty full schedule for the rest of this weekend. I'm going to have some buy-sell videos around the free agency market. I'm also going to have player profiles on Xavier Legette and Tyrone Tracy, rookies in this upcoming 2024 class who are in the potential sleeper area. So if you like the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel because that way you can keep up to date with some of these things. I know the video quality is still not where I want it to be visually, but I do try to make the content, audio, and in terms of the information itself, the best that it can possibly be. So see you guys hopefully for the rest of the weekend with some of these other videos, and until next time, goodbye.